In 2017, the Ackland received this amazing gift of about 134 Dutch and Flemish drawings from Dr. Sheldon Peck and his wife Lena Peck, and they had been collecting for decades. And we were astonished that he was giving these drawings to us because it added so much to our collection of Dutch drawings, but it makes us one of the only public universities in the country to have a collection of Rembrandt drawings. This is a drawing by Rembrandt from about the 1640s of women and children. And you see here that he's actually inscribed the drawing himself in Dutch, and that says, "A little child with a jacket on its head." We only have about 17 that we know of where he has actually inscribed the drawing himself, which makes this an extremely important sheet, especially to have in our collection. He's used not only a reed pen, but also you'll notice that he's used maybe part of a brush or his fingers to give shape to some of the figures here.
The ink that he used is called iron gall ink, and it's one of the most common historic inks used for drawing and writing. It was made from oak galls, which are these little swellings from twigs in an oak tree where a wasp lays its egg, and the oak tree swells up into called a gall. And so they would take these galls and grind them up with iron filings and various other recipes to make a dark brown or black ink. And it was very common and very popular, and everyone would make their own recipes. But sometimes the recipe would be better and sometimes it would be worse. And so iron gall ink can degrade because of the iron content, which tends to go through a chemical change and a degradation process that can eat through the paper and cause the staining and a sort of bleeding effect. So we can see here in some of these lines the dark brown that is no longer the delicate touch of his pen, but the ink has spread and the staining has made it kind of fuzzy and less legible.
I first saw this machine in use, the VSC 8000, while I was at another museum and they were examining drawings. And I thought that this would be a fantastic way to look at our Peck drawings. And so I asked the company, Foster & Freeman, if they would allow me to rent it for a short period of time. And they were gracious enough to do that. And so we've been able to look at a number of our drawings from the Peck collection with this technology. It's a machine that has multispectral imaging that allows you to look at drawings, or any other work of art actually, under various kinds of light wavelengths. So not only do you have infrared that you can put the drawing through, you can also do UV, transmitted light, and transmitted infrared technology. So this has been very helpful for us to view drawings in a different way and to gather new information that we weren't aware of before. When we looked at the drawing under infrared light at the level of 850, we noticed immediately that something was off about the drawing. In particular, that there are now these black areas of reinforcement in some parts of the drawing that are not contemporary with Rembrandt's composition.
Some of this little detail was added in a different ink. The iron gall ink, which was the main ink used of the composition, it transmits in infrared, which means it becomes somewhat invisible. So we're able to see other details. However, this is a carbon ink, which absorbs infrared and becomes dark and more easily visible. So this was our first time even seeing that, because in ordinary light, the iron gall ink is so dark that these black marks just blended right in with it. I think because the iron gall ink had begun to degrade, an owner of this drawing decided to make some improvements themselves and add these additional lines in carbon black to make it look better. We wouldn't do such a thing like that nowadays, but in the past that was a very common thing for owners of artwork to undertake themselves.
And I think it's helpful to remember that all objects have their own lives. And so not only do we see the artist's hand, which is wonderful about drawings, is that they're so intimate and we are one step removed from Rembrandt's hand here, but then they leave the workshop, they go other places, they're owned by different people. And during that time, things happen to works of art and drawings where people do add lines and other inks to them. And then they come to us and they have another life where they are preserved and seen by our visitors and by our students who put them in their minds, and they have another life. And so it's just the life of an object. And technology helps us tell these stories of the object's life and what it's gone through and how we can preserve it for generations to come.